Africa, an amazingly diverse continent, is home to a multitude of cultures and economic structures. While some African countries are experiencing rapid economic growth and prosperity, others continue to struggle with challenges that make their currencies significantly weaker than their global counterparts. The repercussions of a poor currency extend beyond the economic realm, affecting social and political stability as well. High inflation and reduced purchasing power exacerbate poverty and inequality, leading to social unrest and political discontent. Here is the list of the 15 weakest currencies in Africa 2024, based on their relative value against the US dollar. The Sierra Leonean leone, SLL, epitomizes the economic struggles of Sierra Leone. As the third weakest currency globally, a stark reflection of its depreciation since its 1964 introduction. Initially replacing the British West African pound, Leone enjoyed a period of strength, even surpassing the US dollar in the 1980s. However, persistent issues like inflation exceeding 40%, significant national debt, slowed economic growth, and the impacts of the Ebola outbreak have led to its decline. The Civil War further exacerbated inflation, necessitating currency reforms. The new Leone, SLE, was introduced in July 2022 at an exchange rate of 1,000 SLL to 1 SLE. Old Leone denominations remained legal tender and continued to circulate. However, inflation continues to erode the purchasing power of the Leone, which has been accelerating since 2022. The Zimbabwean dollar was the name of 4 official currencies of Zimbabwe from 1980 to 12th of April 2009. During this time, it was subject to periods of extreme inflation, followed by a period of hyperinflation. On the 24th of June 2019, the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe abolished the multiple currency system and replaced it with a new Zimbabwe dollar, the RTGS dollar, real-time gross settlement, which was the only official currency in the country between June 2019 and March 2020, after which multiple foreign currencies were allowed again. In place of the Zimbabwean dollar, currencies including the South African rand, Botswana pula, pound sterling, Indian rupee, euro, Japanese yen, Australian dollar, Chinese yuan, and the United States dollar were used. According to World Bank data, Zimbabwe began to get its problems with inflation under control. However, its annual inflation rate rose again. In 2022, it was around 104%, a huge improvement from 2020's 557%. The annual gross domestic product, GDP, growth rate was 8.5% in 2021, an increase over 2020's 7.8%. The Guinean franc, code GNF, is the currency of Guinea. It is subdivided into 100 centimes, but no centime denominations were ever issued. The Guinean franc, ranked as the 8th weakest currency globally, reflects Guinea's economic challenges. The first Guinean franc was introduced in 1959 to replace the CFA franc. Guinea, a former French colony in sub-Saharan Africa, boasts abundant natural resources like gold and diamonds. Guinea has large reserves of natural resources, including bauxite, but faces challenges in fully capitalizing on them. However, it grapples with high inflation and has been destabilized by military unrest and a surge of refugees from neighboring countries like Liberia and Sierra Leone. In addition, security concerns, including border disputes and regional tensions, disrupt economic activities and lower investor confidence. These factors collectively contribute to France's low valuation, painting a picture of an economy rich in resources, yet struggling with significant internal and external pressures. The Ariary, code MGA, is the currency of Madagascar. It is notionally subdivided into 5 irembolanja and is one of only 2 non-decimal currencies currently circulating. The other is the Mauritanian ouguiya. It is a weak currency due to a number of factors, including import dependency and high inflation. Madagascar's economy is in crisis, and the national currency continues to depreciate at an alarming rate. The country experiences political instability and frequent changes in leadership. Economic growth is hampered by limited foreign investment, a weak business climate, and infrastructure development problems. The economy of Madagascar is UN $9.769 billion by gross domestic product as of 2020. Being a market economy and is supported by an agricultural industry and emerging tourism, textile, and mining industries. Malagasy agriculture produces tropical staple crops such as rice and cassava, as well as cash crops such as vanilla and coffee. Malagasy exports from customs protocol in some areas, notably the United States and the European Union. Madagascar is a least developed country according to United Nations. The shilling, code UGX, is the currency of Uganda. Officially divided into cents until 2013, due to substantial inflation, the shilling now has no subdivision. Introduced in 1966, this free-floating currency symbolizes Uganda's challenging economic journey. Uganda, rich in resources like oil, gold, and coffee, faces hurdles like erratic economic growth, high debt, and political unrest. The dependency on agriculture makes the country especially vulnerable to fluctuations in commodity prices and weather conditions. Uganda generally runs a negative trade balance, importing more than it exports. This puts pressure on the exchange rate of the Ugandan shilling. Post the Amin era in Uganda's history, despite initial economic recovery efforts, Uganda struggled with financial mismanagement, leading to a significant economic downturn. This downturn made shilling one of the African countries with the weakest currencies. Nevertheless, the nation's abundant natural resources offer a glimmer of hope for a substantial economic rebound, suggesting potential for the shilling's recovery. The franc, code is BF, is the currency of Burundi. It is nominally subdivided into 100 centimes, although coins have never been issued in centimes since Burundi began issuing its own currency. Only during the period when Burundi used the Belgian Congo franc were centime coins issued. Burundi's economy, primarily dependent on food production, has been severely impacted by civil unrest and overpopulation, leading to a 25% contraction in its subsistence economy. This backdrop has rendered the Burundian franc one of the weakest currencies in Africa. The country is not economically diversified. Its economy is based mainly on agriculture. The export base of Burundi is limited and concentrated in a few key commodities, such as coffee and tea. The country relies significantly on foreign aid. The BIF currency rate is impacted by recurring political instability. These crises have a detrimental impact on economic stability and erode confidence in the BIF. The Congolese franc, code CDF, is the currency of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. It is subdivided into 100 centimes. However, centimes no longer have a practical value and are no longer used. The Democratic Republic of the Congo, DRC, has faced an economic downturn since the 1980s, significantly affecting the value of its currency, the Congolese franc. The devastating impact of the First and Second Congo Wars halted the country's economic progress, placing the DRC at a low rank on the UN Human Development Index. Similarly to Tanzania and Rwanda, the DRC is heavily dependent on imports. The country is rich in natural resources, but struggles with corruption and conflicts, which restrict economic development. Political instability plays a significant role in the country's economic issues. The currency's exchange rate is also influenced by foreign exchange reserves, which remain low. This stagnation is further compounded by pervasive corruption, which hinders foreign investment and diminishes interest in the Congolese franc. As a result, the DRC's currency remains one of the weakest in Africa. The shilling, code TZS, is the currency of Tanzania. It is subdivided into 100 cents. The Tanzanian shilling replaced the East African shilling on the 14th of June 1966 at par. The economy of Tanzania is a lower middle-income economy that is overwhelmingly dependent on agriculture. Economic development in Tanzania is uneven, with challenges such as corruption, inadequate infrastructure, and limited industrialization. Tanzania is dependent on imports, which contributes to the country's weak economy and currency. Despite the recent robust expansion in exports, primarily fueled by the resurgence of tourism, the increased growth in imports driven by domestic demand, coupled with escalating international commodity prices, led to a broadening of the current account deficit, CAD. Kwacha, code MWK, official name Malawi Kwacha, is the currency of Malawi as of 1971, replacing the Malawian pound. It is divided into 100 tambala. The exchange rate of the Kwacha undergoes fixed periodical adjustments, but since 1994 the exchange rate has floated. In 2005, administrative measures were put in place by Bingu and Mutharika to peg the exchange rate with other currencies. Banknotes are issued by the Reserve Bank of Malawi. In May 2012, the Reserve Bank of Malawi devalued the kwacha by 34% and unpegged it from the United States dollar. The currency was further devalued by 25% by the central bank in May 2022, followed by another 44% devaluation in November 2023, raising inflation rate in Malawi. Malawi's economy depends on agriculture, which employs more than 80% of the population. Low agricultural productivity and limited commercialization lead to stagnant income growth for most Malawians. The country struggles with limited diversification and is vulnerable to external shocks like weather events. The Naira code, NGN, is the currency of Nigeria. 1 Naira is divided into 100 kobo. The economy of Nigeria is a middle-income, mixed economy, and emerging market with expanding manufacturing, financial, service, communications, technology, and entertainment sectors. It is ranked as the 39th largest economy in the world in terms of nominal GDP, the second largest in Africa, and the 27th largest in terms of purchasing power parity. The World Bank has identified the Naira of Nigeria as the weakest currency in Africa for 2023. Having depreciated by almost 40%, the depreciation of the Naira is linked to the Central Bank of Nigeria's decision to remove trading restrictions on the official market. This policy change weakened the currency. The World Bank advised Nigeria to cease printing more money and warned against untargeted subsidies and foreign exchange distortions. The Rwandan franc, code RWF, is the currency of Rwanda. The franc became the currency of Rwanda in 1916, when Belgium occupied the previously German colony and the Belgian Congo franc replaced the German East African rupee. Rwanda used the currency of the Belgian Congo until 1960, when the Rwanda and Burundi franc was introduced. Rwanda began issuing its own francs in 1964, 2 years after gaining independence. Rwanda has made some progress in recent years, but its currency, the Rwandan franc, continues to face challenges. Rwanda is working to diversify its economy, but faces obstacles such as its landlocked geography and dependence on agriculture. The country relies heavily on imports, which makes it vulnerable to fluctuations in the global market. The depreciation of the Rwandan franc fuels inflationary pressures as import prices surge. Rwanda struggles with persistent shortages of foreign exchange, which also limit economic growth.
The Kwanza code, AOA, is the currency of Angola. For different currencies using the name Kwanza have circulated since 1977. The currency derives its name from the Kwanza River Kwanza. The economy of Angola remains heavily influenced by the effects of 4 decades of conflict in the last part of the 20th century. The War for Independence from Portugal, 1961 to 75, and the subsequent Civil War, 1975 to 2002. During the first decade of the 21st century, Angola's economy was one of the fastest growing in the world. The Angolan economy has faced multiple challenges, including the need for economic diversification, improving infrastructure, and addressing social and economic inequality. Oil production and exports have historically been the primary drivers of the country's revenue and economic growth. In recent years, Angola has been making efforts to diversify its economy away from its heavy reliance on oil. The government has implemented initiatives to develop other sectors, such as agriculture, manufacturing, and tourism. The Central African CFA franc code, XAF, is the currency of 6 independent states in Central Africa: Cameroon, Central African Republic, Chad, Republic of the Congo, Equatorial Guinea, and Gabon. CFA originally stood for Colonies Françaises d'Afrique, French colonies of Africa. Following the independence of these states, its name was changed to Coopération Financière en Afrique Centrale, Financial Cooperation in Central Africa. The currency is issued by the Bank of Central African States, located in Yaoundé, Cameroon, for the members of the Economic and Monetary Community of Central Africa (CEMAC). The franc is nominally subdivided into 100 centimes, but no centime denominations have been issued. The banknotes have been issued with only a letter prominently displayed to distinguish between the issues of the different states. The country letter codes are as follows: A Gabon, C Chad, F Equatorial Guinea, M Central African Republic, T Republic of the Congo, U Cameroon 2022 series. The Central African CFA franc is of equal value to the West African CFA franc and is in circulation in several Central African states. They are both commonly referred to as the CFA franc. The West African CFA franc code, XOF, is the currency used by 8 independent states in West Africa, which make up the West African Economic and Monetary Union: UEMOA, Benin, Burkina Faso, Côte d'Ivoire, Guinea-Bissau, Mali, Niger, Senegal, and Togo. These 8 countries had a combined population of 105.7 million people in 2014. And a combined GDP of $128.6 billion United States dollars as of 2018. The initialism CFA stands for Communauté Financière Africaine, African Financial Community. The currency is issued by the Central Bank of West African States (BAO), located in Dakar, Senegal, for the members of the UEMOA. The franc is nominally subdivided into 100 centimes, but no coins or banknotes denominated in centimes have ever been issued. The banknotes have been issued with only a letter prominently displayed to distinguish between the issues of the different states. The country letter codes are as follows: Ivory Coast, B Benin, C Burkina Faso, D Mali, H Niger, K Senegal, S Guinea-Bissau, T Togo. The Central African CFA franc is of equal value to the West African CFA franc and is in circulation in several Central African states. They are both commonly referred to as the CFA franc. The franc code, KMF, is the official currency of Comoros. It is nominally subdivided into 100 centimes, although no centime denominations have ever been issued. The economy of the Comoros is based on subsistence agriculture and fishing. Comoros has inadequate transportation links, a young and rapidly increasing population, and few natural resources. The low educational level of the labor force contributes to a subsistence level of economic activity, high unemployment, and a heavy dependence on foreign grants and technical assistance. Agriculture, including fishing, hunting, and forestry, is the leading sector of the economy. It contributes 40% to GDP, employs 80% of the labor force, and provides most of the exports. The country is not self-sufficient in food production. Rice, the main staple, accounts for the bulk of imports.